guys, it's Aoife from Friday We Died Laughing, and I am here with my top reads of 2017 so far. I've been meaning to do this video for the last like 3 weeks and I'm finally sitting down to do it, and I just want to tell you about all the best books that I've read so far. And the first one is a book series that I started reading at the very start of the year in January. That is the Seven Realms series by Cinda Williams-Chima, and this is just a high fantasy YA fantasy series, and I've just been absolutely loving this. I love the characters, I love the world building, I just loved every single book. I think my favourite books though were the first one, which is The Demon King, and the third book, which is The Grey Wolf Throne, and there's a fourth book that I haven't gotten around to yet, but I'm hoping to get around to as soon as I find it in the library. The second book I want to talk about is Dread by April Daniels. This is a book about a young transgender woman called Danny, and when she comes across the dying body of a superhero, she ends up being passed his mantle. But the thing is about the superhero mantle is that it kind of transforms you into the person you really are on the inside and the person you really want to be. So Danny ends up becoming completely physically a girl, and then has to end up dealing with not only superhero powers, but you know, the full kind of transition and how people are dealing with that, and a lot of homophobic and transphobic people that she never knew were in her life, and having to deal with all of that. And it's just a really excellent book. It's not only like a really great, obviously, LGBT book, but it's also a really great just superhero book, and it's just really exciting. And I have the second book on my Kindle, and I can't wait to read that. The third book is Traitor to the Throne by Alwyn Hamilton. I read this in February, I think, and this is the second book in the Rebel of the Sands trilogy, and this was just a really fantastic sequel in my opinion. It just brought the story out further into like places that we hadn't seen before, and I just loved the setting for this one. This is kind of like a Middle Eastern desert cowboy almost like setting, but I just really enjoyed everything that the characters had to do in this. There was a bit of secrecy involved, a bit of spying, and I just really loved it, and yeah, I can't wait for the third and final book to come out in this series. The next book is The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. This is a thriller that I read at the start of the year, and it just blew my mind. This one just had me hooked. I read it so quickly. I ended up just like trying to get everyone I know to read it because it was so good. And this is about a woman who is driving through kind of a shortcut through the woods one night to her home. It's a stormy night, and she sees a woman in a car, but she doesn't stop to help her. She thinks the woman must be waiting for someone, so she just keeps going. And then the next day she wakes up to the news that this woman has been found dead, and she just has no idea what's happening. She doesn't know, like, maybe did she have something to do with the murder. There's kind of like an unreliable narrator feel to the whole book. Things just get really twisted, really confusing. You've no idea what's going on, and I just absolutely loved the ending of it. One of my next favourite books was This Shattered World by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This is the second book in the These Broken Stars trilogy, I think it is, and each of these books follows like two different characters. Each book follows like a male and female character in this kind of sci-fi world. And I really loved the first book, These Broken Stars, and it took me ages to read the next book, which was This Shattered World. And I just loved everything to do with this. There was this kind of like Irish connection as well to the kind of rebels in this book, and it just really reminded me of the Irish rebels and like obviously Irish history and how they were treated, how native Irish people were treated by the English people who were obviously taking over Ireland, who were in charge of Ireland. And I just felt there was a lot of really great similarities, and I do think that pretty sure one of the authors, I can't remember who it is now, has like a background in history or has studied Irish history at one point, so obviously she really knew her stuff. I'm not sure, I could have made that up, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. But yeah, there was definitely just this Irish connection to it that I just really loved, and I'm not sure if other people picked up on that or if you just have to maybe be Irish to pick up on it, I don't know, but I just really loved that about the book, and I just really loved the characters as well, and the romance is really nice as well. The next book is by an Irish author. It is set in Ireland, and it is The Call by Peadar O'Guillan. This is like a YA horror supernatural story, and it's about when teenagers are a certain age in Ireland, they are transported for 3 minutes into the fairy world, but it's 3 minutes in our world, but it's like, I think 12 hours or 24 hours in the fairy world, and basically they have to try and survive being killed by these horrible fairies, and very few teenagers survive this, and Ireland is basically cut off from the rest of the world because of this. The Fae have cut off Ireland. No one can get in, no one can get out. There's no kind of proper medical treatment, and people are living like very I don't know, I guess very primitive lives almost, completely cut off from the rest of the world. But it's just a really interesting book. It really leaves you on the edge of your toes. I really loved all the characters in it. I loved seeing how each character dealt with being transported into this fey world when they received their call. And yeah, it was brilliant and I really enjoyed it. The Cows by Donna Porter was also one of my favourite books this year. This is just a kind of like women's contemporary fiction with this really great kind of feminist twist, and there's just like so much like crazy stuff goes on in this book, but it also has like this really kind of message of kind of being who you are and kind of, you know, doing you, being a woman, being like proud of your body, being proud of your sexuality, being proud of just you basically, and standing up for what you believe in and stuff like that. And you know, there's just, yeah, I just really loved it. I just thought it was really, really funny. It was absolutely outrageous, some things that some of the characters did. I just couldn't believe they would do that because it's absolutely crazy. But it was just really, really entertaining. She Give by Angie Thomas was one that I had been afraid to read because it had been so hyped since it came out, but it absolutely deserves all the hype it gets because it was definitely one of my favourite reads this year. I think everyone knows what this is about, but it is centred around the Black Lives Matters movement, and it's about a girl who sees her best friend get shot by police even though he is unarmed. And this book is it's just like so moving and so important, and one of the best things about this book for me was the main character Star's family. Her family, her dad in particular, are just absolutely amazing. They are all there for each other. They are, you know, involved parents, which is great. And yeah, I just absolutely love this, and I cannot wait to literally read everything else that Angie Thomas comes out with because she's a fantastic writer. And this is like her debut novel, which is just insane because it's so good. The Power by Naomi Alderman won the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction this year, and it's no wonder because it is really, really good. This is a kind of dystopian-esque book about a time when women, they start developing this kind of weird kind of piece of skin, I think it is, on their collarbones, and it's called like a skein, and it's basically where they're able to give other people electric shocks, almost like the way eels can give electric shocks. And basically it ends up like turning over the kind of gender dynamic in the world, like the gender power dynamic, and females suddenly become a lot more powerful than males. Males become kind of the lesser gender, and it's just a really, really interesting take on what would happen if like something like this happened. And it's like it doesn't only show like how this affects like kind of places like England and America, but also shows what this would happen if it happened in Middle Eastern countries where women have always been second-class citizens. This is really great for anyone who loves Margaret Atwood books. This one's that's quite easy to read as well. It's like a fast read, but I really enjoyed it. Red Sister by Mark Lawrence is of course on this list because I genuinely love all of Mark Lawrence's books. This is his new fantasy series, and it is about a young girl called Nona, I think her name is, and she basically is sent to this kind of like a convent, but they're called sisters and they're like nuns, but they are trained in like the art of fighting and some kind of like special kind of magic and stuff like that. And you kind of get a past and or a future and past look, and you're just finding out all these different things that are happening to Nona and how she's developing her powers and her fighting abilities and stuff like that. And it's just absolutely brilliant. I don't want to say too much about it because it would be spoilery, but if people like really high fantasy, this is brilliant. This has like a whole load of female characters because obviously it's set in a convent, so a majority of the characters are female. There's very, very few male characters in this book, so they're all powerful female characters, which I absolutely love. So definitely give it a shot. Number 12 is actually a reread, and it was Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. I read this a couple of years ago, and I reread it recently, but I listened to it on audiobook, which was different from the first time I read it because I actually read a physical book the last time. I read it on Kindle the last time. And I just really enjoyed my experience of listening to it this time, and I just felt like I just loved the story even more the second time around, and I appreciated things that like maybe I hadn't noticed in the first time around. And the last book I want to talk about is The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. This is a non-fiction book, and it's about the women who were in the during the 1920s, and maybe a bit earlier and maybe a little bit later, but they were basically they were painting clock dials through with radium in these factories, and the radium ended up like really affecting their health, and they lived horrible lives with this radium poisoning. And it's basically about what happened to them and their fight against all these companies that basically didn't look after their health and safety while they were working in these factories, and ignored all of their complaints and basically pretended that they were all like lying. And it's just about their fight against these companies and how they lived and how they continued to fight even though they were literally like losing pieces of their body along the way. And this is like, it's a horrifying story because it's true, like it's true, this actually happened to people. They had to go through this horrible illness, but just the strength of them as well, and just the love they had for each other and their families, and the love their husbands had for them as they kind of like basically mortgaged their homes like the second, third time so they could pay for their wives' medical bills. The way they just like, you know, stood by them in the courts, and there was just a really lovely feel to it as well, even though it was such a horrible story. And there was just a real kind of respect as well by Kate Moore telling these women's stories. You could tell that she really respected them, that she just really felt for these women. She really went out of her way to find out the little things about them, not just about like, you know, their fight against the companies, but found out about like their little quirks and little things they did for their family, and like the way, like what music they liked to listen to, what kind of dances they liked, all that kind of stuff like that made them real people. And I just love that. So this is one I would definitely recommend to everyone because I absolutely loved it. So yeah, so those are like my favourite ones from up until like June, I think, or like till the end of May. So please let me know if you have read any of these, if you agree with my choices, if you want to read any of them, and what some of your favourite books have been this year, because I would love to know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys again next time.